Oh, just a second. Sorry, we missed starting the recording. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined us today live or are watching this session recording later. My name is Vishal Chawla, and I am one of the members of the organizing team for this bootcamp. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Salesforce Marketer Group Singapore is super excited for organizing this biggest Salesforce Marketing Cloud Bootcamp program in this region. This bootcamp will cover 65 plus sessions on a wide variety of topics covering the various Salesforce Marketing Cloud products. To present these topics, we have invited some of the leading industry experts from across the globe. A very big thank you to one and all who are part of this wonderful Salesforce Trailblazer community. A few housekeeping rules. During the session, in case of any questions, please use the chat box. For any questions post-session, you can either use this bit.ly link or you can scan this QR code, which will take you to a Google form wherein you can drop in your questions. Second, this link will take you to our YouTube channel where all the session recordings are uploaded. So all the past session recordings, you can find it at this link, or you can also scan this QR code. To sign up for future sessions, you can go to this link or scan this QR code, which will take you to a Trailblazer community page, wherein you will find the registration link for all the future sessions. Regarding today's session, it is episode number 7 in this series, which is all about security within Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So here is the agenda. A bit of round of introductions, then the SFMC security settings best practices. We'll share resources and have a round of Q&A towards the end, and post the session there will be an interesting quiz wherein participants get an opportunity to win some cool prizes. A shout out to our organizing team, Abhishek Nagar, who is SFMC technical lead. Yours truly, Vishal Chawla. I am a SFMC solution architect. Prashant Vardhan, who is Salesforce technical lead, and Fanindra, who is a chief technology evangelist. With this, I would like to hand it over to Sharath, who is the speaker for today's session. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, Vishal. Hey, everyone. Can anyone confirm you guys can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Welcome to the session on security best practices for Salesforce Marketing Cloud. My name is Sharath K. Tamarna. I'm based out of Singapore. I'm working as a campaign consultant for Digital Alchemy. We're managing solutions for Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Pardot, and Salesforce CRM. I'm a 2021 marketing champion and a community group leader for Marketers Group Bangalore. And I'm a Salesforce 6X certified. And you guys can reach me out on my LinkedIn, Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel as well, which is named as Salesforce Marketing Group Bangalore, where you can see related to Pardot and SFMC videos. Yep. As everyone knows, security is a pretty big deal, right? This is most likely why you all are here, to learn more about security best practices for the Marketing Cloud. As we know, we live in a data-driven age, and all our data lives on all facets of business, like including marketing activities like building your subscriber list, creating your audience, running a campaigns. Everything is driven by the data. In today's digital marketing world, we all run very personalized campaigns, which involves a lot of personal data. That's why it's most important for the marketers to safeguard the customer's data and to safeguard the brand reputation as well. So in this session, I will try to cover some best practices on securities like usernames and the password policies, how to set up MFA, security implementation for data encryption and data decryption using safe host location, FLE, that is a field level encryption in Marketing Cloud. And the last one is a landing page security. First, whenever we talk about a security, by default, we will be having 3 questions. And at the same time, whenever we think about the security mindset, that person should have this 3 key questions, that is who, why, and what. The first one is who. Like, who are the contexts in this security discussion? Like, it can be an user, it can be an administrator, it can be a marketer, or it can be a developer. Apart from this, it can be an external user as well, like persons like attackers as well, right? At the same time, it can be an API integration user if you have done any integration with an external source. Next, why do we need to address this security concern? And at last, what do we need to do in order to mitigate these threats? These 3 security mindsets should be there whenever we're planning any of the security related features. As a first step, I will talk about who. We typically see generally in Marketing Cloud with 3 personas. We interact with the Marketing Cloud platform most of the time. One is marketer, who performing any kind of segmentation or audience building or running a campaigns, etc. The next one will be an administrator who is setting up your whole Marketing Cloud platform, who has performed one-time initial setup to do all kind of segmentation or to target the end users. The third one will be a developer role who performs any API integration or building cloud pages likewise. Next is what are all the implementations we can do it in SFMC for security purpose. Below are the security features and encryption functionalities for the data which was stored or used in Marketing Cloud. First one, you can see a Marketing Cloud security. Under the Marketing Cloud security, you have login IP whitelisting. This login IP whitelisting, which includes a range of IP addresses where we have an option like we have to add like start range and the end range. Once we have defined that ranges, if someone is accessing from outside of that particular network, it will automatically deny the access. The second one is encryption key management. This is an area where it will manage a security keys or a security options which is used for encryption and decryption of data in Marketing Cloud. The third one will be an identity validation. This identity validation works like a double authentication. Like I think if you guys have heard about MFA, SSO, similar to this identity validation will also works, but where we can see like every information of the customer who has logged in and what time he has logged in, all that information in this identity validation. The next one is email export whitelist. This is an extra layer when it comes to the security, where you can define some domains or usernames, like who can export the data from Marketing Cloud. We can restrict an access to specific username or the domain. Okay, that's all the Marketing Cloud security features. Next, the encryption functionality features. The first one will be like field level encryption. That's an FLE encryption. This feature will permit the encryption of data at a field level. like inside the marketing cloud. This kind of use case we used to see on finance related clients or any health related informations at that point of time, where we use this FLE kind of encryption. I will explain in detail like how to implement this FLE on the coming slides. The next one is tokenized sending. Generally, we use tokenized sending to send the contact data that is too sensitive to store in marketing cloud. I think if we have a scenario like we don't want to store the data in marketing cloud, what we used to do is, if it is too sensitive, we will bring the data from an external sources. We will do some API calls, and we will try to send a real-time emails for those customers. This sensitive information can include PII data or any health information, etc. And the last one, you have an additional security measures in the resources. This will fall under roles and permissions. Like roles is a collection of permissions, generally that will allow or deny an access to this marketing cloud applications. When it comes to the roles, we have some default roles in marketing cloud where you can't edit the default roles, but at the same time, you can create some custom roles by an administrator based on what level we want to restrict the users. Okay, some of these features we have in marketing cloud with respect to security and consents. Okay. First, I will explain about the security settings. Okay, once you logged into SFMC, this will be the UI where you can see under this UI, you have an option of username at the right side. You can see it over here. When you click the setup, this is the place where you will do all the, not only the security related configuration, with respect to all the admin related configuration when it comes to SFMC, what needs to be enabled, what needs to be disabled. All this feature is going to be enabled over here. Under the setting, you have an option of security. If you click the security settings, yeah. Okay. The marketing cloud security setting includes session setting, username and logged in, password policies, single sign-on settings, data export setting, connection security, audit trail. I will go one by one. The first comes the session settings. Here we have session timeout. Let me edit it so that I can show the changes what we can do. Yeah. Here we can set that how long the application remains open in a browser before the system will automatically locks up. Okay, the next one will be like secured connections. Like this is going to be decided like who can log into your system, whether they can use a secure connection or this does not. Even like, for example, whenever you use this option by default, you have to go with the secure connection itself. But for an API user, this is not applicable since they are logged in through a separate process. Okay. When it comes to the usernames and the logins, the first option is you can see the login expires after inactivity. This will explains like when the customer was not logged into this system for so many days, when should that login should be expired? For example, you can see you have an option of 30 days. If the user was not logged in for last 30 days, yeah, we can make them a login as an expire. It depends on client to client. As a best practice, we need to keep it as 90 days. If someone was not logged in for so long, I think we need to disable that user. Next, you have invalid logins before logged out. If some attackers or if someone is trying from an external person is trying to log into your system by using a username and the password, if they are giving the wrong password, when the system should be locked out, that is going to be decided over here. If I give it as 3, if the system has wrongly added the username or the password 3 times, automatically it will be locked. As a best practice, we need to keep a minimum user length, not 6. Yeah, I can say it like at 8 to 10. The reason is most of the clients is going to use email addresses and username. Yeah, by default, it's more than 6 characters. Yeah, as a best practice, we need to keep it as 8 to 10. Next, you have an allow users to grant access to for a support. Like for example, if you check this or uncheck this option, this will be comes into picture like whenever you require any support from the Salesforce support team or from any account representatives, at that point of time, if they want to log into the system, this is the place where you need to enable an option. So without required any access from your end, they can log in from the backend and they can verify that issue from the support team. The next one is IP allow list. You have 3 options for the IP allow list. As I mentioned, IP allow list is where you are going to add some start IP range and the end IP range, like who is going to access your system, from which network they can access. That is going to be decided on an IP allow list. I'm going to explain in detail on coming slides. The next one is allow list source. Whenever we have this allow list, like who can access that? Whether it should be restricted to a business unit level or whether it should be restricted to an enterprise level. When this will comes into picture is, for example, some of the agencies where they are using the same instance for multiple business units. For example, agency 1 is using one business unit and agency 2 is using another business unit in the same instance. At that point of time, what level of restriction which is required? It's a business level unit. If the whole instance is managing by the single client, at that point of time where we can decide and we can put it like an enterprise level. The next is identity verification. As I mentioned, identity verification which works like a 2-step authentication. If it is make it as yes, then we can see like who are all try to log in at the backend. At the same time, if this account is having an SSO or MFA, how they have logged in, like they will get some code to their email addresses or some external apps or a Salesforce authenticator where they can just use those codes to log in into the system. Again, this identity verification when it comes to the business unit, and this is also related to like whenever it depends on agencies or maintaining a separate business unit or a whole business unit is managing from the single client. Okay, apart from this, next is password policies. By default, we should maintain some minimum password length. At the same time, we have to keep a password should be a complex. The reason is the attackers don't want to try some default passwords to log in into the system. So we have to put some complexity in the password by adding some alphanumeric and special characters. You can see you have an option of adding 6 numeric and 6 special characters as well. Enforce the password history. Like most of the time, I think what we used to do on a regular basis is, since we can't remember a multiple password, we will try to use the same password every time, right? Like as a best practice, I think we don't have to use the same password every time. So what is the maximum password where we can remember when it, maximum, you can keep up to 15, but it depends on you guys. Next, like user password expiry, like when the password should be expired once we have added the new password. As a best practice, we can keep it as 90 days, but we have others option as well. The last one is like API user. I think for the API user, by default, a password expiration, we don't have to keep it as disabled. It should be like we need to exclude an API user from this password expiration. The reason is the API user may have connected with multiple platforms through an integrational process. So we don't want to break that integration. As best practice, we need to exclude this for an API user. Next comes the single sign-on. I think 2022 January, before 2022 January, I think every client was using the single sign-on. After that, we have an update on MFA. I think today we have both single sign-on and MFA. If some clients were already having a single sign-on, they have an option for MFA as well to upgrade easily. Like, okay, you guys can see over here where you will get some key certificates for an SSO, where you need to upload it to get it from an external system, and you need to upload it over here. You can see over here, this is going to be expired on February 6, 2023. For the next set, you have to upload some XML code, which is going to be generated, and you have to upload that certificate. Then only after February, from 6th onwards, it will work till the next year. Okay. I will explain in detail about whenever I'm explaining the MFA. The next one will be like data export setting. This is a place like just we are going to enable like whether we need this option or not, but we can set it on a separate tab. I will explain that as well. But what this data allow list will do is where you can add some domains and any usernames, like who can extract the data from your list or a data extension. At that point of time, only few users will have an access. We can restrict likewise by using data export setting. At last, we have an audit trial. This will enables the data collection for audit logging to your account. This feature will connect audit logging in two separate reports. Like one is through a data extract activity through Automation Studio, and another one is through you can extract to REST API extract as well. You can't expect each and every activity we are going to do it in SFMC on audit trial data collection, but you can see a data export, data import, that kind of results where you can verify through audit trial data collections. Okay, this is all about a security settings tab best practices. Next, I will talk about IP whitelisting. Yep. This, as I already mentioned, IP whitelisting will allow you to create a list of trusted IP addresses or an IP range from which your user can access your domain. For example, you can specify a range of IP addresses that belongs to your network. When somebody was trying to attempt to log in from outside of your network, the application will automatically deny them the access. Let me show that in Marketing Cloud. This is a place where you're going to create that IP ranges. If you click create, where you can add the start IP range and an end IP range. Again, who can access that? The customer can access only, the user can access only the IP range between the start IP range and the end IP range. And you have an option of login source. Any means the user can access the application from either from an user interface or via from the API as well. For example, if you selected an option of user interface, only a user can access the application via the user interface only. The last one will be like API calls. Only a user can access the application via an API. As a best practice, I think we will keep it as any. And yeah, this security will definitely help if someone is trying to log in outside of your IP ranges, it will be restricted. The next one is identity verification log. As I mentioned, like it's a two-step authentication where ID validation will access the log, will allow you to view all the recent validation. Like I can say this is a great place to look if a user is having trouble logging in to see what the issue was. You can validate everything over this identity validation, and you can see over here where you can see the member ID, IP address, from which IP address they are logging in, what is the login name, what is the login source, when they have logged in, the event type, they're getting some verification code through MFA. You can verify everything over here. The next one is export email LO list. If you want to export the data from Marketing Cloud, we can put an whitelist an email address or a domain like who can export the data. You can add the email addresses who can export the data. At the same time, we can add the domain as well, so that only those users will have a permission to extract or export the data from any of the list or a data extension. Okay. Next is MFA. One second. This MFA will generally enhance your security of your business. And this is one of the simplest way to prevent an unauthorized account access and to protect the Salesforce data. More than a user ID and a password, I think we will need to add some extra factor that's going to be involved in MFA. For example, today, something you know that is username and the password, plus something you have that is a mobile or an application which generates a specific key. Every time, what's going to happen is it will ask for an approval to log into Salesforce. So it will be difficult for an attacker to compromise or get this extra factor if they already know the username and the password. So this is the most easy way to keep the account secure. At the same time, Salesforce will force to implement this to almost all the clouds, and even for the clients as well, every time they will suggest to implement this. This, even before the MFA, as I already mentioned, this MFA came on 2022 January. Before that as well, we have some MC authentication security measures, which I already explained, like identity verification factor, single sign-on, login IP whitelisting. As I mentioned, the identity verification is nothing but which requires you to authenticate the browser or an application which used to access the application via any email or any codes like that. When it comes to the single sign-on, this will also enhance your security mechanism, including multi-factors. Maybe I think most of the clients using either SSO or MFA today. Generally, SSO is a centralized session and a user authentication service in which one set of login credential can be used to access multiple applications, right? I think that's why I think most of the clients were using both SSO as well as MFA. When it comes to the IP login whitelist, where you can include some start IP range and the end IP range where you can access your account. So these features was not enough. We need to add one more feature for the strong verification, that is MFA. First of all, what is MFA? This MFA is a process that requires a user to verify their identity for 2 or more times before they are able to log into Marketing Cloud account, where we have 3 different methods. One is Salesforce Authenticator to log in through mobile apps. The second one is a third-party authenticator, such as you have Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, etc. And the third one will be like security key, where you can use YubiKey or Google security key, etc. And MFA will not allow for any calls or text or email verifications. Okay, let me show that in a tool. Yep. Under the security itself, you can see the multi-factor authentication. Like this is a place, for example, once it was enabled for an account, whenever a new user is trying to log in for this particular account, it will ask for which authenticator you should be verified. You have an option of Salesforce Authenticator, Security Authenticator, and a time-based one-time password, which is nothing but where we can use some external apps like Google Authenticator or a Microsoft Authenticator. If you check any of the user, I think it will shows like who are all registered For that particular authenticator, maybe I will go to cloud preference. You will easily get to know. Time. Okay. On your mobile phone, once you install the Salesforce authentication application, when you try to log in from it, automatically it will send two word phrase or some codes, or even you can directly you will see some QR code to directly log in as well. That's how the Salesforce authenticator will works. And when it comes to security keys, once you register through the security key or an UB key, once you enroll with respect to UB key, whenever you try to log in, you just need to visit that UB key, so automatically it will be logged in. And the last one-time password generator, again, it works similar to your Salesforce authenticator, but it's an external applications like Google Authenticator or an Microsoft Authenticator, where you used to get that code. And even you can log in directly through by scanning the QR code. Okay. Yep. Here you can see like, okay, the user was registered through a security key. Which one? Is it a Salesforce authenticator, security key, or an external authenticator? And even an administrator can revoke this access, and we can do these changes. For example, instead of a Google authenticator, I can register through the Salesforce authenticator. Okay, that options we have. As I mentioned, whenever we logging in for the first step itself, it will ask for which authenticator which is required to log in. Either it's Salesforce authenticator or security keys or external authenticator. Okay. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about the Salesforce encryption and decryption, how we can implement this encryption and decryption in Marketing Cloud. The main objective over here is a data protective and a privacy regulation, which is required for every client to keep the personal data secure, right? This overall implementation of encrypting the data and decrypting the data, this will help whenever we are doing an exchanging of file to and from SFMC to SFTP or SFTP to SFMC, whenever the file was in FTP, automatically we will get some encrypted file. So we should be in a secure place at that point of time. I will explain in detail like how this encryption and decryption where we can implement in Marketing Cloud. When it comes to the prerequisites, as a first step, we need to enable the safe house for an import. I will explain what is safe house. The next one is you have to create a safe house as a file location. And the third one will be like you have to set up a private and a public key using key management. These all three will be the prerequisites. I will explain each and every one. When it comes to the implementation, the first step is you have to set up the FTP account, which is since, for example, if you want to encrypt any files, we need a safe house as a location. So we have to configure the enhanced SFTP setup in Marketing Cloud, and we have to do the file location configuration. For example, if you want to push the file from import or export or a safe house location, you want that file location needs to be configured. And by using a private and a public key, where you can do the encryption and decryption in Marketing Cloud. Okay. For that, first comes the FTP setup. If you go to setup, under that, you have an option of data management. Under that, you can see the FTP account. What is FTP? This FTP method is helps for transferring the data from one computer to another or over the internet. It's loading. Yep. At the same time, these FTP sites are available for almost all the stacks like S1. You can see this is S11 stack. You have an S1, S4, S6, S7, S10, S15. These are all the marketing cloud stacks where we use. It's available in all the stacks. And this FTP account will allow you to create an FTP privileges within a marketing cloud, where marketing cloud can allow you to create up to 3 FTP users, where you can see over here only one which is enabled and two was locked, and you can create two more FTP user. Once you have tried to add the FTP user, automatically you will get an username and an email address, and you can add the password from your own. At the same time, once you have repeat that password, it will ask for a permission, whether it's a read-only permission or it's a full permission which is required. And whatever we have discussed about the IP allow list, you can add that IP allow list as well to restrict if any of the external resource who try to access from an external network, we can restrict those users. Okay. Once this FTP user was added, automatically you can see status like enabled. Enabled means the FTP account is ready for the use. And you can see the locked as well. Locked is nothing but this FTP account can't be used. If you want to enable this, you need to contact your MC account representative for any help for that. At the same time, there is one more option called disable, where if it requires, where we can enable that disabled status and we can use that FTP accounts. Okay. Once this FTP account was configured, for example, this is a tenant SFTP URL. You can try to access by logging into your FileZilla or something like that. For example, what you need to do as a first step, you need to add the tenant specific URL, and you need to add your username. You need to add the password. The port will be like, if it is secure, then it's 22. If it is unsecured, then it's 2021. Just once you add this quick connect, it's going to establish a connection for the SFTP, where you can see 3 folders by default. Yeah, you can see it over here. One is export folder. For example, whatever the extract, if you want to extract any files from the marketing cloud to enhanced SFTP, all the files will be placed in this export folder. If you want to import any files into marketing cloud, I think we have to drop that files, or yeah, this is the place where you need to add that. If any triggered automation related stuff, that is going to be captured under this triggered automation folders. By default, this enhanced STP can retain your files on a marketing cloud for maximum of 21 days. Any files that is older than 21 days, automatically it will be eligible for remove. It will be auto deleted. Okay. At the same time, whenever you're planning to extract any files from the marketing cloud or to import any files into the marketing cloud, there are some restricted characters we can't use under the file name, like slash, greater than, less than, semicolon, exclamatory. These kind of characters you don't have to use on your file names. Okay. Now the FTP is configured. Next, we have to create a file location for this FTP, like to export or import the files. Okay. This is the place where you have to configure your file location. The file location is an FTP site or a file storage location where mainly used to transfer the file from to and from into the marketing cloud. Whenever you configure the file location in your account, you have to select the type of file location, what type of file location, where that file needs to be stored, something like that. I think we have to configure that file location over here. You may want to know that. Okay. You can see over here. Whenever you try to create a new file location, you can see under the location type, you have different location types. Whatever we have configured earlier, that was an enhanced SFTP. For example, you have seen 3 folders, right? One is import and the another one is export and the triggered automation. Whenever the files needs to be placed under the import folder, I think you have to select this enhanced SFTP site import directory. For that, you have to configure one file location for it, okay, by naming a file location. Similarly, if you want to export any data from SFMC to that particular export folder, you have to use this external enhanced FTP site export directory. Similar to that, you have an external SFTP as well, or external FTP as well. When you guys can use this is, for example, apart from the enhanced SFTP, if you're using any external FTP at that point of time where you need to add URLs, the port, username, password, all this information over here. And you have 2 more file location. That is, for example, one is safe house. Safe house is a location where only an authenticated user can access a safe house location, which resides on highly redundant or highly available central storage server. By default, we have a retention setting for safe house as well, that is 21 days. Whenever you import any of the encrypted files, you have to select a safe house as a location, default location, to do the decryption in Marketing Cloud. Okay, I will explain in detail about that. This is where you are going to set it up, all your file locations. Okay. Similar to safe house, you have to, for example, as I mentioned, you have to create it for export directory. You have to create it for import directory. If you're using any external SFTP where you have created any subfolders, based on that, you have to create all the file location in this place. The next is key management. Now we have an SFTP and a file location where we need to place a file and where we need to store the file. We have that information now. To do this encryption and decryption, we need to add one more feature that is called, I can say like security keys. That security key is where we used to call it as a public key or a private key. That public key or a private key, you can't create that public key or a private key in Marketing Cloud. You have to use some external applications, like you have many applications. Example, you have an application called Putigen, where I used to regularly use that one if you want to create any public key or a private key. Once you have created by using an external application, you have to add the public key and a private key over here. The private key is mainly used to decrypt the file, and the public key is mainly used to encrypt the file. You can see here you have a different set of key types: asymmetric encryption, symmetric encryption, initiation vector, salt, SSO, metadata, SSS. Asymmetric encryption requires a pre-created certificate which is uploaded from your computer to your Salesforce Marketing Cloud directly. As I mentioned, once you created that private key and a public key outside of a Marketing Cloud by using an external application, it will give you some certificates like public key or a private key, and at the same time it will provide some passphrase or a password. It is going to be defined by us only. Okay. You have to select an option of asymmetric key. You have to name it, like for example, if it is an encryption, where you have to select that file, whatever you have extracted from external application, and you have to select your private key with the passphrase. Whatever the passphrase where you have given on the external page, you have to provide that passphrase over here. So whenever, sorry, for the decryption, it's a private key. For an encryption, it doesn't require. For encryption, you need a public key. For a decryption, you can add a private key with the passphrases. Once you have added that information, you have saved it, it will create a public key and a private key for you, where you can do the encryption and the decryption in Marketing Cloud. Okay. Now assume like I haven't created any public key and a private key. I have just shown now like how to create that and use that under the key management. Now we have FTP setup, the file configuration, and as well as we have set up the private and the public key. The next is like, this is just, I have showed like how to create a public key and a private key and how to add that. Whatever I have explained, it was over here. The next one is like, whatever we have done now to do the inbound data decryption by using a private key. And at the same time, if you want to extract any data outside of Marketing Cloud by using a public key, I'm going to explain that overall process now. As a first step, to do this process by default in Marketing Cloud, we require two activities, automation activities. If you guys are already experienced, maybe you guys know about this file transfer and import activity. If you're completely new, what these activities will do is, this file transfer activity is an activity is mainly used to upload and download a file from the transfer location that you specify. Where this file transfer activity can transfer the file securely, and even it will be unencrypted if there is uncompressed. All those activities is going to be done by using this file transfer activity. Next, when it comes to the import file activity, it's going to whatever the unencrypted or decrypted file we have done from the file transfer activity, that file is going to be imported into one of the table by using import file activity. First, I will explain the inbound one. Think that we have an FTP where we are uploading a file from an external system that is an encrypted or a compressed file. Once the file is in the enhanced FTP, bring that into the Marketing Cloud. Before bringing it, if you want to bring the data into Marketing Cloud with a decrypted format, we need to create a file transfer activity. Under that file transfer activity, we have an option called manage files. It is going to be unzip or decrypt the file within the safe house. Okay. Once the file was decrypted, automatically we can push the data into one of the table in the Marketing Cloud. Okay. How this process will work is, for example, you have to use file transfer activity. You have to, for example, assume that where I'm getting in files from an external FTP, you have to select the manage files, where to decrypt a file. Here, you have to specify the naming convention of that file, whatever it was dropped on the FTP. And you have to mention the location. What is the source location of that file? And you have an option of, for example, if it needs to be unzipped, and since it's an encrypted file, I need to decrypt that file. I'm going to select this one. Once you have selected, it will ask for a private key. Like whatever I showed, like to create by using a key management, you have to create a private key. Once you have created that private key, you can see the private key over here, and you can directly select. And whenever the file was placed on import activity, automatically this is going to be run, and the file will be placed on import activity into one of the table after whatever we are going to use after this file transfer activity. Okay, this is inbound. When it comes to outbound, for an outbound, it will be works like you have to extract the file from Marketing Cloud from a data extension, and you have to transfer that file to one of the location on the FTP, right? For that, you have one more activity, which is called data extract activity. This data extract activity will help you to extract the data from a data extensions. Once the data was extracted, where we will push that file to the file transfer activity, whenever you're pushing, you have an option like you have to move the files to the safe house. Once it was into the safe house, automatically, whatever the selection, whatever the file location you have selected under the FTP, it will be stored in that file location. Okay, that's how the outbound and the inbound process with respect to encryption and decryption of data. Assume like whenever you are using an public key external system, external FTP which was configured, what's going to happen? In that external system, by default, we have configured the public key. Okay. When we send an encrypted file from an external system to the enhanced FTP, and then automatically it will be coming to the safe house. Salesforce should be able to understand how to decrypt that file by using a private key that is going to be done. Once the decryption is happening, like after that, if you want to extract the file from an SFMC data extension to the FTP again, you have to use a public key to extract that, and you have to push that file to the safe house. Once you have pushed, automatically the file will be transferred to an FTP location, and next it will be moved to a external system. Yep. Okay. The next comes the field level encryption. I think whatever I have explained now, by, for example, the key management, encryption or decryption of data, that is going to be happen outside of Marketing Cloud. The FTP we will be having an encrypted file, and when comes to SFMC, automatically the data will be decrypted, and we can see the decrypted data in Marketing Cloud. But when it comes to the field level encryption, it will work differently altogether. The Marketing Cloud will permit an encryption of data at a field level as well. And here the system will convert the encrypted fields to the plain text at the time of sending. You will see the encrypted data in a data extension, but at the time of sending, that is going to be decrypted and the email will be sent. To implement this overall feature, as a first step, you need to purchase and complete the Marketing Cloud professional service agreements, whatever we have, and at the same time, you have to plan. For example, whenever we have an health related clients or finance related clients, if you want to implement these kind of features, you have to plan at the step one itself before you configuring anything on SFMC account, or before you try to target any of the users, or before you bring the data from an external system. You have to plan this field level encryption. Okay. As I mentioned, only when it comes to the prerequisites, only new accounts can use this field level encryption. For example, if your account is already in place where we are targeting for end users, then we can't apply this field level encryption. Generally, FLE will require encryption of any email address field which is used for sending. Okay. At the same time, this FLE will be, whenever we have enabled this FLE, it will be applicable for all the business unit. We can't apply it specific to one business unit. It's going to be applicable for an enterprise business unit overall. These are all the prerequisites by default. At the same time, whenever you're planning to synchronize the data from an external system, for example, assume like if you are using a sales and service cloud activities, if you want to bring the data from the sales and service cloud activities, as a first step, you have to purchase your sales agreement with the FLE one, and you have to create a data extension to use it specific for FLE encryption. Then only you can do this a synchronization kind of data, which is going to be bring from an external platform or a sales cloud, service cloud, etc. Okay. As a first step, this process will require a symmetric key, which is generated via encryption key management, whatever I explained earlier, and you need an initialization vector with the symmetric key as well to do that encryption. Okay, most of the time, I think this encryption, since it's a field level encryption, that's going to be happened for an email address. And whenever you're configuring this key management, generally it requires some characters like 16 to 36 characters, depending on chosen type. I'm not exactly sure about it, but we need some specific characters to do this encryptions. Once we have the data in the key management, now SFMC can do an encryption to your sensitive data. At the same time, this field level encryption will also permits to bring the data from through FTP or any importing method. They can bring the data into data extension. But here, whenever you create an FLE data extension, that FLE data extension should be created by using contact builder only. Then only the FLE will be applicable. Otherwise, if you create any data extension by using Email Studio, then this FLE will not be applicable. So as a best practice, you have to, whenever we have an FLE kind of clients, I think we need to create all the DEs related to this FLE data, which is going to be stored by using the contact builder only. As I mentioned, while the data was in encrypted format, while sending the messages, it's going to be decrypted and the email will be sent. When it comes to the FLE, we have many limitations compared to a regular normal encryption and decryption of data. As I mentioned, the first one will be like you have to create all your FLE related data extension by using contact builder only. And whenever you try to do a data synchronization with any external system or sales and service cloud, as a first step, you have to create your DE. As a first step, you have to purchase that agreement, and next you have to create your FLE DE. Then only you can do this data synchronization. The third one will be like you can't segment or queries or filtering based on the encryption field. Whatever the encrypted field, for example, assume you're using an encrypted field as an email address. At that point of time, you can't query based on the email address field. Next restriction is you can't use an auto suppression list. If you guys know about the auto suppression list, which is mainly used to suppress the customers on an enterprise level, that auto suppression list is going to be worked on enterprise level, email address level. So we can't use the auto suppression list. At the same time, if, for example, if you're using a subscriber key as a mobile number, if you want to do the encryption for mobile number, that's also not possible. Likewise, we have many restrictions when it comes to FLE, and even encrypted field doesn't support the default values. If you want to add some default values into the data extension, that's not going to be supported by this FLE process. Okay. Next comes the landing pages security. When it comes to the landing page security, I have taken two use cases just to explain like how we can make this as a secured pages whenever we're creating, like if you want to access from the internal users, like whoever working on SFMC. Yep. This is one more secure and security scenario where we can restrict the access only to the SFMC users. For example, let me go to cloud pages. As I mentioned, this use case will be applicable like if a cloud page is created for any reporting purpose or any tracking related informations, only an SFMC users will have to be an access, or an internal user will have to be an access for this particular cloud pages. I think we have to follow this process. As a first step, we have to create some, I have just created one simple cloud pages. Okay. I have created one simple cloud page. Once you have created your cloud page, how we can make this secure is, I think you can just go to setup. This security, as I mentioned, in order to prevent an external users from accessing this cloud page applications, we will create a new integration under the Salesforce integration, under the install package. Okay. As a first step, create a new package. Once you have created, you have to just add a component as API integration, and the integration type should be web app. And whatever the URL you have, whatever the cloud page you have created, right? Just add that URL information over here. Sorry. Once it was added, just save it. Now that cloud page will fall under this installed packages, where only users can access your cloud page. For that, what you need to do is you have to copy this client ID, client secret, and an authentication URL, which is a 28-digit URL, and you have to copy it and you have to add that information on your cloud page, where I have already replaced that with a client ID, client secret, and an authentication URL. Once it was added, for example, if you try to log in over here, it will be logged in. You can see here, welcome to tool. But if I try to log in by using incognito window, at that point of time, it will be shows an error. You can see it is asking for a username and the password. This is one use case where, as I mentioned, if you want, in order to prevent an external users for accessing the cloud page, we will create a new integration page. And once you have created that cloud page, just add that URL for a web app application. So automatically, only an SFMC user can access this whole cloud page. And I have one more use case. I think, for example, if you have an access with the cloud page where you guys can create a number of integrations, definitely you can go with the first option. If you have some restrictions of using that integration, I think you guys can follow this. This process will need a 3 data extension and 3 cloud pages to build this overall process. How this works is, whenever a user try to access your cloud page URL, assume we have a cloud page. If I click that cloud page, what it will do is it will be checked for a specific cookie on a browser. If the browser accepts this cookie, if it is verified at the backend, if the data was present on an user table, automatically what that cookie will do, it will be redirected to the cloud page automatically. Assume if the cookie was not valid, what's going to happen is it's going to be send a redirect URL. That redirect URL is going to be asked for username and the password. Once you have added that username and a password, it will check whether that user or username and the password which is present in your user data extension or not. If it is present, it's going to give you a token which is going to be sent out to your email, or where it will be sent out one link as well. You can utilize that, and once you have added that code, authentication code, automatically it will be verified whether the customer was or user was present in a user data extension or not, and it will be redirected to the end cloud page. Yep. I think that's all. If you guys have any questions, yeah, we can go one by
Uh, Thank you for the session, Sharath.
one.
I can see we have few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be great if you could help with those.
I think few of them was already answered by Funny. Okay.
So Sharad Jafar is asking, can we automate file encryption or decryption without utilizing key management?
No, how come it's possible? By default, we need a public key and a private key to do that encryption or decryption in Marketing Cloud. So yeah, it's not possible without those keys in Marketing Cloud, because by default we will use a safe house location to store the decrypted data. Since it's an enhanced SFTP, yeah, it's not possible.
Okay. So Puneet Gaur is asking, okay. So Puneet, there is no Marketing Cloud sandbox temporarily, like, we are not able to get any Marketing Cloud sandboxes like we get a developer or. So there's one more question from Lakshmi. So she's asking, like, I'm wondering if we can get any detailed documentation for these use cases.
Okay.
Do we have any documentation for the use cases?
Yeah, maybe I can share it with you. Maybe you can share it with Lakshmi. Yeah, after the
Yeah,
call.
sure. Thanks, Sharad. So there's one more question from Akash. So what if we create a data extension after enabling FLE? Will it be encrypted?
No, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, the first thing whenever when we are planning for an FLE, first you have to create the data extension. Then only the FLE, all the encryption data you are going to see under Marketing Cloud. Otherwise, it will be on a decrypted format. And even as I mentioned, if you create any data extension by using an email studio as well, it's not going to be encrypted.
There's one more question from Lakshmi. Can you please repeat the name of the tool used for public or private key generation?
Okay, maybe I can share it in the chat, which is a Putigen, and you can use SH keygen. Yep. Just added in the chat.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. I think most of the questions Funny has also answered them. Yep. Are there any other questions, guys? Or do you want us to move to the quiz? Okay. I don't think I see any. Wonderful. We'll then just move forward with the quiz. Hold on. Thank you, Sharad, for your wonderful insights and for the wonderful session on the security part. We'll just move forward with the quiz and then we'll try to end the session.
Yep. Thanks, Prashant. Thanks, team, for joining.
So, yeah, just stop the recording.